A first-year law student argues with a veteran professor about the Constitution. Not because he's right, but because he thinks he knows enough to outsmart the law. A new hire walks into a company, suggests changing the workflow before finishing her first week, because she thinks everything should be done her way. These people aren't lacking intelligence. They're just falling into something familiar, thinking they know enough, when really, they're just standing at the edge of understanding. Psychology calls this the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less we know, the more we think we know. And this kind of confidence isn't harmless, because sometimes it doesn't stay in a classroom or meeting room. Sometimes it walks right into the biggest courtroom in America. Ted Bundy, intelligent, logicated, confident enough to represent himself in court, and convinced he was rational enough to outsmart the entire system. But in today's video, we'll see. It wasn't the evidence that brought him down, it was that very confidence. You think you're smart, maybe you are. But today, with psychology as our lens, we'll ask, when is confidence a strength, and when is it a very sweet trap? Have you ever met someone who's been going to the gym for 2 weeks and already starts teaching others about muscle transformation cycles? Or someone who just started meditating and immediately says psychology textbooks don't go deep enough? That's the very first stage of the Dunning-Kruger effect, the peak of Mount Stupid. The glorious moment when you don't yet know that you don't know. The original research by David Dunning and Justin Kruger 1999 found people with low ability tend to greatly overestimate their skills because the lack of skill also prevents them from realizing they lack it. The same knowledge that allows you to do something well is the same knowledge you need to recognize what doing it well looks like. Dunning and Kruger, Cornell University. Put simply, you need to know just enough to realize you don't know enough. But if you just started learning and already feel enlightened, congratulations, you've reached the top of Mount Stupid. The Dunning-Kruger model has 4 stages. 1. Just learn something, confidence through the roof, instant guru. 2. Realize you actually know nothing, ego crash. 3. Learn more, talk less, start understanding. 4. Become an expert. The smarter you get, the more you doubt, the more you verify. And Ted Bundy, unfortunately, got stuck in stage 1. Smart, yes. Studied law, yes. Understood the legal system, not quite. Realized that he didn't understand the legal system, absolutely not. And that proud little peak called "I know what I'm doing" was exactly where the downfall began. In 1979, Ted Bundy was put on trial in the state of Florida for serious charges. He had a team of experienced attorneys. But do you know what Bundy did? He fired his lawyers, then chose to represent himself. Why? Because he believed, no one understands me better than I do. And more importantly, I can tell my story better than anyone else. This is the core of the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with low ability often overestimate their skill in expressing and persuading, especially in public settings. In a study by Erlinger et al., 2008, the less competent someone is at a task, the more certain they are they're good at it. And nothing draws a narcissist more than a stage with an audience. Instead of focusing on legal strategy, Bundy focused on the audience's gaze. Instead of countering the charges, he impressed with polished words, structured logic, glances at the camera, fixing his hair. And then, right there in that courtroom, he proposed to a witness in the middle of trial. Under Florida law, if the proposal is accepted before a judge, the marriage is legally valid. You'd think, maybe he did that to reduce his sentence. No, Bundy wasn't trying to survive. He was trying to control the image he left behind. In Bundy's mind, the courtroom wasn't a place to defend freedom. It was a place to define who I am, in front of the public. And as Dunning once said in a TEDx Talk 2017, the problem isn't just ignorance. It's that people are unaware of their ignorance, and that gives them dangerous confidence. The Dunning-Kruger effect is painfully ironic. It lifts you up with illusion and lets you free fall when reality knocks. For Bundy, that fall began with his own overconfidence in court. He wasn't taken down by high-tech evidence. He wasn't outwitted by a confession trap. He wasn't caught in a twist like in the movies. He was defeated by a bite mark. A real event, the bite mark match. On the body of victim Lisa Levy, police found dental impressions. Bundy thought he was too clever to leave a trace, but forensic experts matched the bite. And it aligned 100% with Bundy's teeth. A tiny detail no one was supposed to notice. An instinctive act he couldn't outsmart. And that's the fatal flaw of those who trust their minds too much. They think they can control everything. According to research by Dunning 2005, when someone overestimates their own ability, they often overlook details, underestimate risks, and fail to predict the consequences of small, automatic actions. It's not that incompetent people fail to recognize their incompetence. It's that they're overconfident they've succeeded. David Dunning, Cornell University. And so, after all the logical arguments, the polished image, the hundreds of pages of legal defense, one bite brought it all crashing down. No criminal is smart enough to think they'll get caught. But there's a very specific kind of person. Not someone who thinks I can avoid getting caught, but someone who believes I belong to the group that can't be caught. Ted Bundy was one of them. Why? Because he didn't just think he was smarter than most people. He believed he was smarter than the entire system. According to research by Johnson 1990, people who engage in harmful behavior and have high cognitive ability often develop what's called a reality control illusion. They believe that through social skills, speech, or quick thinking, they can manipulate others and outmaneuver the system. In other words, I'm not innocent, but I know how to make people think I am. And the most dangerous part, he actually believed that. Bundy didn't spend his life hiding. He showed up in public, held normal conversations, even chatted with police officers because in his mind, intelligence was his invisibility cloak. Behavioral psychology calls this cognitive overconfidence plus manipulative self-belief. He didn't let his guard down because he was careless. He planned things proactively, based on the delusion that he was the exception. And this is where the Dunning-Kruger effect stops being funny. It becomes a sweet, self-made weapon, sharpened by confidence and turned right back on the one who forged it. Ted Bundy didn't lose because he was stupid. He lost because he thought he was too smart to need anyone else. And when he stood in the middle of the courtroom, he didn't see himself falling. He thought he was rewriting the rules of the game. Sounds distant, but in reality, it's closer than you think. Have you ever rejected feedback just because you thought, I already know this? Ever done something clearly wrong, but blamed the situation because there's no way I'm the one who's wrong? Ever thought, this is easy, then walked into the test and got wrecked before you even blinked? All of those moments, they don't mean you're dumb. They mean you were standing at the peak of young, overconfident certainty. According to research by Amos and Kamrath 2004, the more highly people rate their own logical thinking skills, the more likely they are to ignore opposing feedback because they believe I don't need correction. And that's when they stop learning, and that's when the fall begins. The trap isn't in failure itself. It's in being so sure that failure won't happen to you. And maybe none of us is Bundy, but each of us has stood in our own kind of courtroom. A courtroom where we wrote our own arguments, defended ourselves, and got sentenced by our own ego. So if you've ever thought, I'm too smart to make a dumb mistake, then maybe this video isn't just a reminder, it's a mirror. Meanwhile, the people who kind of know a little are the ones most likely to think they know it all. The danger of intelligence illusions isn't in what you know. It's in what you don't realize you don't know. And as Ted Bundy proved, sometimes the sweetest trap is belief in your own mind. So now you've seen, being smart won't always save you, but blind confidence it'll definitely take you down. Ted Bundy didn't fall because he lacked knowledge. He fell because he didn't know. Real knowledge begins when you start to question yourself. But here's the bigger question: if people that confident can make us doubt ourselves, what happens when they speak well, use the right words, and make us believe they're actually good? In episode 5, we'll dive into why we fall for confident talkers, even when they're dead wrong. When the words are well chosen, the voice is steady, and the eyes seem just kind enough. You don't verify, you surrender, follow so you don't miss it. Because maybe it's not the information that deceives you. It's how someone makes it sound true.